Hello there. So, I think this is the first time I have streamed at this time. Trying something new here. And so, thanks for joining me. And I'm glad, Brian, you get so hyped by the intro music. I like it too. So, I'm going to continue today with the same painting I've been working on several times of this couple on the glacier here. Got it a little bit closer now with the camera so that you can see what I'm going to be doing, because today I'm going to work on the couple. So, I did some kind of basic shapes just with this blue color here for the lower kind of original base, and then be painting over all of that, of course, because none of them are actually blue. No parts, their bodies are Smurf. So for today, I'm going to be putting in some just base colors here and there to kind of get everything kind of all in there without any details and see how the color looks together. Make sure it's like it looks okay together. And I think I'm going to start with his suit, because that's like the biggest part, and it's kind of going to be the biggest influence for what else we see as far as the colors and everything, just because it's so large. And it's also just the flesh color is very warm compared to the background, but also just the color of the suit is very different also, as this sort of mauve color. So I'm thinking that there's this one color I have, which I have not used very much, and I'm going to use that today, which is Iron Violet. A very interesting color. Now, I don't think it's going to be quite violet enough, so I'm going to probably have to add some Cobalt Violet with it, but kind of can't really see the color too well, but it's a little bit more brownish, but it's kind of along the lines of this color here. I'm going to just try it out. And as you add white to it, I think it shifts a little bit to be kind of cooler than it is just out of the tube. Oh, hey Mitch. So, thanks for stopping by. Just finished eating, so I'm hearing my throat a lot. Here's my mouth. Close to the camera. I've got the one camera, which is actually the iPhone, very close to the camera, or to the computer and the painting today, just because it's got to get closer to see things closer. So you're probably going to see my head getting in the way of that shot every once in a while, but that's just life, I guess. Okay, here's my ultramarine violet, and not putting out too much because I'm not really sure if these are the colors I'm going to need, but I think they probably will work all right. I don't want to put out too much color if it's not actually going to be what I'm going to use, even though I can put it back in the tube a lot of the time. Sometimes that's not so easy if there's really a lot of it. Oh, I'm glad you're here again. Yeah, if you were like really hating watching me paint, then it wouldn't make sense for you to come back, but I'm glad you're here. Unless you just wanted to torture yourself. Yeah, so let me just see what happens here. Now I'm going to add a little bit of each of these and just combine them here with some of this white. There's a few places that are kind of dark, but I don't know if I want to just go with maybe black for those really dark areas instead of have the two colors without any white added. So also adding the white in there allows me to really see what the color looks like easier than when it's really dark. This is not too far off. Maybe not quite saturated enough. I think I would probably use quinacridone if I wasn't a little bit concerned about the testing with that's going on right now, which, at least for some quinacridone painting pigments, seems to be apparently pretty good at this point, but it's not really completed yet. So for the time being, I'm going to just avoid that. I think I might want to get some cadmium, actually. I think this is maybe just a little too brown here. It's very close, but not quite there. For a color like this, that's kind of restrained or just not extremely bright. You know, if the saturation is not bright enough, then it could really make it look dull. Like more than a color that's, you know, not quite this sort of subdued. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe one of the cadmiums, actually. Maybe the, well, I've got cadmium red, medium, and then cadmium maroon. So I'm not sure which one would be better here. So could probably go with either one. I mean, the cadmium maroon is closer to the actual color I need. A little dark, though. I think I will try it out. I would normally paint the things on the left first, then move over to the right as I'm going along there. But just because this section is so large, I'm going to start out with that suit. Boy, I've been missing out on some of these comments. Okay. Kasha, do you mean Kashi, Ryan? Buckwheat? All right, I'll try this again here. So I'm gonna try it just with the maroon here and the violet and see how that goes. You can always easily get the colors to be less saturated. But more saturated is, you know, you can't get more saturated without just having a saturated color to add in there. Now this is getting kind of brownish looking, but it's just getting a little dark, so once I add this white in here, I think we're gonna see the color standing out a lot more than the original one that we got over that way. Okay, so this is maybe a little bit closer. Not sure if it's still not quite intense enough though. Maybe if I go with a little more of the maroon here and see what happens. Yeah, I'm thinking this is like raspberry bubblicious right here, which is not exactly what I want. But yeah, it's almost there, but it's still not really what I want. So I'm gonna try the other cadmium now. Because that one is not as dark and it's more saturated. Let's get this one out of the way. That just went everywhere. Okay. Do they even make raspberry bubblicious anymore? I don't know. Oh, thanks, Live Like You Mean It. Yeah, the background is not actually completely done still, but it's pretty, it's like about 95% there maybe. Okay, so this one is closer to a sort of primary red. A little bit darker than that maybe, but pretty close. Red actually hits your eye faster than any other color. Has the most intensity, and it's at the top of the color spectrum, at least what we can see. There's other colors out there that we don't even know about, or at least that we can't see anyway. I heard about a kind of interesting conversation years ago with fire trucks and how the traditional color is red, but it's not the same as having a fluorescent color, you know, like a neon yellow, and the whole thing with how kind of the firefighters perceive the color, and they like the just traditional red, but apparently you can kind of see the neon yellow a little bit easier, at least in certain situations. So, you know, you never know what color one company is going to have versus another. The reason that arc sodium lights are that orange color that you see at night in a lot of places, that's because supposedly it's easiest to see in low light with that orange, which is very close to what you see at sunset. So that's kind of interesting too. Okay, this is looking definitely too red. I'm going to keep going with the violet here. You definitely hear about arc sodium lights a lot in Stephen King books. He mentions them like usually at least once at some point. This is still not looking great, actually. I don't know. Sometimes you just run into this kind of issue with getting colors to kind of match what you're trying to do. It's just the color, the actual pigments, and what their physical ability is. This cobalt violet is very dark. That definitely affects how things look, of course. All right, now this is pretty close. You know what? I might be able to go with this. Oh, Big League Chew. Wow, that was... They still make that? That's going way back. Yeah, is it true that red makes you hungry? Red does all kinds of things. I've heard if people sit in a red room, it's easier for them to get angry. As far as like colors in logos that make you hungry though, red and yellow specifically make you hungry for whatever reason. That's why you see them in a lot of different fast food restaurant logos and, you know, ShopRite, different places like that. Well, Mitch says, Mr. Know-It-All, sodium lights are orange because that's the spectral emission line of sodium under excitation, not because it's better at night. Well, I've heard they use them specifically because of that color. So, I don't know, I don't remember where I heard that, but maybe they just picked them because they got a bunch of that stuff sitting around and like, oh, I need to just use something for lights. I mean, there was a time where I remember lights were, I think, whiter, and then he started using the orange back in like, I don't know, the early 90s maybe. I could be wrong about that. Well, as far as our eyes perceiving green best out of all the colors, depends on what you mean by perceive best, I guess. There's a lot of different greens, and actually the color we see as yellow is really green. So if you want to talk about what's really green and what we perceive as being green, that's one that we don't even see as the same color at all. There are certain tribes in Africa that they still don't recognize blue and green as being different colors. And blue is pretty much always the final color to be named in different cultures around the world, because there's really not that much of it in nature aside from in the sky or in the water. So, you know, that's interesting too. All right, I'm gonna just add a little bit more of this violet here. I might be able to get by using the violet as the dark, which will keep the dark saturated also. You know, sometimes black will work better, sometimes just keeping it a dark color will work better. Oh, okay. Metal halide lights are a better color rendition than sodium for sure. Well, I mean, there's like, you're definitely not getting the full spectrum with the orange lights, the street lights at night. Now, magenta isn't even a real color. I draw the line right there. How dare you? There's lots of real colors. Colors have feelings, you know, you shouldn't say things like that. I think I'm gonna get a little more of this. In fact, there's some people that actually paint with oils using magenta, yellow, and cyan, just like a printer. Like that's their main colors they use instead of red, yellow, blue, which is just really odd to me, but it works somehow. Okay, I think I'm gonna go with this. So I'm gonna get a little more oil here and a little more paint because not really a lot. This is the base color. So I'm kind of not planning to do a whole bunch of detail, but I might kind of do a little bit. The plan is probably to go back over it anyway, so you know, some places possibly could stay where they are and not get covered, whereas other ones you could just paint over. I'm not sure what the ratio is right here at all. You just put some of this oil in and mix it up. Sometimes you need a lot more of one color than the other. It's like nowhere near half and half or something like that. Yeah, there's some kind of weird stuff with just like cyan, magenta, yellow, like that way of working. Supposedly, you shouldn't even need black to just make black with those colors. So when you have a printer and they're using all four together with black, that's because of impurities in the pigment, apparently. But I remember hearing something a little while ago, which was really weird, which was that, and I saw, you know, images of it, like it actually really worked. There's a specific green and a specific purple, and if you put them together, you could actually get blue, which, like, I kind of couldn't even believe it when I saw it because that's not really supposed to happen. They're both very cool, though. They're already kind of, you know, close to blue to begin with, so I'm sure that's the only reason why it works at all. Normally you can't really make, well, I mean, I can't really say you can't normally make a primary color out of other colors, because you can use the yellow and magenta to make a pretty primary looking red, but you know, a lot of the time you can't really make primary colors. It's just kind of need them to start out with. Cobalt violet is very stiff. Kind of chunky. I'm not going to say it's a chunky monkey, but you could if you want. I put maybe a little bit too much oil in here, but too late now. I'm going to actually get a little more paint just to kind of even this out. Just leveling out too much. Probably is enough. Interesting also because certain pigments have various different types of colors you can get out of them just as a pigment. Like quinacridone can be violet or more magenta, Mitch, or there's other colors like cadmium, which really, it all starts out, I think, is the same thing, but by putting it in a blast furnace, you get different colors, which gives you cadmium yellow or cadmium red, cadmium orange. So they all start out the same. Yeah, that violet's really dark, but the cadmium is very strong. Not anywhere near as dark, but it's very dominant. I think basically the strongest color to try to mix with is Prussian blue, which I don't know if I've ever used it. I think maybe I had a tube a long time ago, but it's very potent. I feel like this looks a little more maroonish than what I would expect for over here. Maybe I need to just add more purple. And the white will just kind of like lighten it up enough. It's just taking a while to get this color here. If you can get the color really close to what you need when you're doing a base like this, even if you're planning to go over it, really makes things easier. Yeah, so I think I'm going to just get this color and then just put it back into the violet for the darks. Just kind of hint at them a little bit here since it's a base. Just added kind of a lot of white in there. And now I can see I maybe need some more red. This is really not enough paint also, so it's fine if I'm adding more. New pigments that have been recently discovered yet. Yinmin Blue, I've heard, is very expensive, and it's just not really all that different than one or two other blues that are already out there. And it's not really the greatest at tinting, I think I heard. I haven't used it. I know people are buying it, but actually I had heard about it right when that was discovered, or not too long after, a few years ago. It was like, I think it was discovered by accident in a lab. They were just doing some kind of experiment. And that kind of just happened, like a lot of great discoveries. Such as the Bob, or penicillin. One of those, at least, was not in a lab. Okay, so I just start maybe putting this on here and just make sure it actually looks right before I get too much paint mixed up. Because sometimes it seems fine, and then you put it on the painting and it looks like crap. So Mitch, I use new pigments from time to time. I already have a lot of colors that I use, so not really dying to get new stuff I haven't tried already, but every once in a while, pretty much just from Rublev, I'll see like a new thing that they're showcasing or whatever. They'll do a little demo with it. I'm having a hard time getting to my brushes here with the camera stand in the way. But I will use a new color if it seems like a good one. Some people are really into keeping it very limited, like the CMYK painters and stuff like that. But I look at it like, if there's a color I can use that's already close to what I need, it's less work for me to do just to mix it up. There's also different properties you have for different colors. Some are more transparent, some are more opaque. Some are more, dominant. I was just saying the cadmium is. So really, two colors that look similar as far as the actual kind of color that they make. If you like get a blob of it out on the tube, out of the tube on the palette or whatever, they might not necessarily kind of like, one might be better than the other, even if they look pretty similar. Like there's a lot of cheaper colors that look like cadmium red, but they are nowhere near as opaque. So in some cases that could be a real issue. Yeah, I mean, it's up to each person to decide if they want to try new colors or not. It's like, you know, if you find something you really love and it's working for you, maybe you don't need something like that, something new to try out. But if you feel like you need something, then, you know, it's up to you. Okay, so now I am taking a look at this color here. I think pretty close. You know what? Let's drop my other camera here. Been doing a time lapse of this ever since I started it. So just putting this on here, at first it's looking a little bit red maybe. But that might change once I cover up all this blue. I would normally just do the base color much closer to what I actually need, but I figured there was so much blue in this one, I just kind of did it with the blue to start out. Yeah, I think I want to add just a little bit more purple. I'm going to have to mix up more of this paint anyway. So, here comes more mixing, Brian. You're just going to have to deal with it. But this has taken a long time, so sometimes that's how it is. You just got to take the time to get the color. I'm going to need to get some more purple out here. When you're doing an underpainting, as I've said before, probably don't want a ton of texture, because it's going to show through with whatever you do over top of it. You're going back over it. It doesn't need to be extremely thick necessarily, but it needs to be thick enough that just covering whatever you're doing. I'm going to take a look at how this is up here. It's slightly more violet, so maybe that's a little bit more of what I need. A little string of paint on my finger here. Gotten in a few places, but whatever. It's fine. Well, really gotten a lot done on the painting so far. I'm proud of myself. Okay, so now just adding a little more oil here. That it's not quite so thick. I can actually add this with the palette knife if I want, but I'm going to stick with the brush. Sometimes you get a little too much on there with the palette knife. It's too dark. If I'm going by what I want for the highlight on there, or at least the majority of it, what it looks like for the lighter area, a little bit more white in there. Sometimes with colors that are kind of tricky to mix like this, it's easier to kind of mix it all up on the painting. Just keep on adding different colors on there and kind of get it that way. But I think I've pretty much got it now. No. Actually not maybe looking quite as saturated as I need at this point. This is the kind of thing that's, well, one of the things that's difficult about painting sometimes with really specific colors is that it's always changing. So you can't really tell sometimes if you have what you need until you've already put it on there. I do have a cobalt violet I could use, which would add a little more saturation in there. I don't know if I need to. The couple actually didn't tell them about the stream. I asked them if it's okay if I use their photo on social media, and they said it was for the bride, who I've been talking to, at least said it's fine. I didn't want to tell them about it because I don't like people seeing the painting before it's done, partly because it often goes through, as I talked about before, the ugly cry stage where it just looks terrible. So that could lead them to kind of get a little concerned if they see things looking like a disaster. And if it's somebody that gets really nervous, they might actually kind of contact me and say, hey, you need to do this and this, you know, and I haven't had that happen often with commissions, but there were 1 or 2 times I had a client make requests while I was still working on the painting, and it really doesn't go well. Like I gotta work on the thing and take care of everything that needs to be painted and worked on. And then if all goes well, then shouldn't be anything to change at the end. This paint is a little bit kind of sticky. Even though I added a bunch of oil in there to get it to move and glide a little more, it's like I don't want to add too much, especially if I'm going to be painting over it, but a little bit more stiff than I would maybe expect. And the violet's very stringy, so I think that's part of it. Okay, well, it's time to mix up some more. I mean, if I was painting this a little thick, or a little bit thinner, I could really stretch it out more, but I don't want this layer to sink. So the thinner you go, the more likely it's going to be sinking. So try to keep from getting too thin with it. Then it's hard to see what you're actually looking at. I mean, if painting over the whole thing, I could just kind of oil it out to start, which I guess would be fine, but I'm not sure if I want to paint over the whole thing yet or not. I also wouldn't want to start adding more oil at this point to the new paint that I haven't put on there yet, because you know, if there is any kind of sinking or any kind of you know, yellowing that happens over time, it would be uneven, and the one part would look more yellow than the other. But I kind of wouldn't expect there'd be much of a concern for that, for how much I've added anyway. Probably would be fine. I've gotten a little patch of this cadmium here where it's a little bit more underbound, where the oil is maybe separated somewhere else in the tube. I saw a Stephen King movie last night called Cell, where cell phones turn everyone into zombies. That was a nice movie. I liked it. I think I need some more of this oil out. Hey there, interesting name that you're going by there, but hi there. So, Pamara L02 says he or she also makes artwork and has an artist mind ever since they were little and wanted to become a well-known artist worldwide, and also sing, so that's nice. I noticed a lot of artists that are visual also do music stuff. I play keyboard too, but not as much lately. Can't hear? I don't know why I can't hear anything. Maybe just check your computer's not muted? I guess you can't hear anything I'm saying, if you can't hear anything. Well, let me know if you can hear me at some point. Of course, you still can't hear what I'm saying, so just have to wait for you to kind of figure things out. But at some point, maybe I can give you some tips about something. Here's some more oil. After all that. Okay, thank you. Have to just kind of communicate in hand symbols and stuff until you're able to hear me. Okay. So I think this will probably be a pretty good consistency. Of course, I'm going to need some more violet now. Well, I think this is the most mixing I've done on a stream. This is really getting pretty lengthy here. But I think I've almost got enough now to do those legs. That was a little more oil than I wanted. I should space some of that out. In case. Gotta be careful where you put that oil on a palette, because since it's transparent, You might not realize it's just kind of sitting somewhere, and then put some paint over there to mix it in. All of a sudden it gets really runny. Oh, thanks, Live Like You Mean It. You can be my translator. For those that are speaking English, but still can't hear anything. It could have something to do with if you're using ear pods. I have a student that, like, sometimes when we connect, ear pods just won't recognize what's going on with a Zoom lesson or whatever. Sometimes if you disconnect things and you don't restart your computer, when it comes to like video and things like that, it seems like the computer may have a hard time sort of switching over. This is still a little bit red here. I'm gonna get some more white and then put a little more violet in there. And that will be about it. Yeah, I was talking about that before. Like, I didn't tell the couple about the stream, but they're okay with their picture being online, so I don't think they would mind. Once I was thinking maybe when it's finished, I might tell them about it, and they could go back and watch. Many incredibly entertaining hours that I've been working on this thing while streaming. Keep getting paint from the violet on my hand. I don't know if it's on the tube or something. It's like just showing up from somewhere. Okay. Mixmaster Anthony. Maybe I should start going by that name. No Wheels of Steel. Do you mean turntables? Oh, because I play music. Yeah. Yeah. When I hear Wheels of Steel, I think of Conan the Barbarian. Because there was a song on there called The Wheel of Time. I can't remember. That might be it. I mean, I say song, but the industry people would call it a track, I guess, even though it's the score. Which still is weird to me. It's a really good soundtrack. I think it's by Basil Palladorus. Something like that. Hard to remember. I've done a bunch of things just with music though, on trackers back in the old days. I don't know, does anybody use trackers anymore? But trackers were computer programs that you could use to make electronic music back in the 2000s, and I guess maybe in the 90s. I don't know. So, done stuff with that. Keyboard, random other instruments here and there. Yeah, there's one I used called Buzz, which was an awesome program. Oh, Impulse Tracker, yeah. Fast Tracker too. I think I had them, but I didn't really do too much with them. I feel like they were kind of glitchy or something, or maybe I just didn't learn how to use them. I don't know. But Buzz was a really powerful program, and I heard a little while ago the original source code for the program was lost because there was, Muscari Tamerlan that created it, his computer caught fire and he lost, you know, everything that he designed the program with. But somebody told me that online he rebuilt everything a few years ago, and it's actually way more stable now. So it was a cool program. It was Windows only, but I think you might be able to use it with Wine on a Mac. Yeah. Yeah, just Cola Buzz. I spent many hours just messing around with that program. It's actually some guy that Brian knew at our art school that had told me about it, like 2001 or something. An open source program. Like, just, I think it was just so cool. I think it's really nice when people do things like that. It's just like not for money, and they're just, you know, donating all their time to programming things for this program just because they're into it. DJ Shadow actually used Buzz for a track when he was putting out his first kind of like original produced album, you know, not just like mixing other people's stuff. Yeah, right, 4444. Yeah, that whole thing, I think that whole thing was just from Buzz. Yeah, I think people know now, like, I know we're much more technology based now than we were like 25 years ago. So I think people know to back things up more, and there's a lot more easier ways to do it. I mean, I was kind of shocked that he didn't have a backup of everything, because this is a program, like, it was like, I don't even know how many people were using it around the world. But you never expect your computer to catch fire until it's already happened. Not really going right up to the edge to this just yet, but I'm going to do that soon. It still is looking a little red, actually. I don't know. You know, maybe I'll just kind of like leave this flat and then go over it with that cobalt violet, because I don't really feel like repainting this entire thing right now. Or maybe I'll just go into it while it's still wet. Or maybe I'll just make it lime green. I mean, you know, I have lots of options here. You know, I was in Japan for a while. I lived there for a few months, for a semester back when I was in college. I saw an Akai sampler at this music store, and there was like a fantastic price on it. It was, at the time, I was like traveling with some of the other Americans, and I wanted to buy it, but I like was not able to bring it back. So I was like gonna get it at a different store closer to where I was staying in Tokyo. So I had like the, you know, salesman at the store write a note, you know, saying how much it was and like that I could get the same deal at the other place. And then eventually I kind of figured out, like, we went to the store and they were like, no, you know, we don't have that deal. And eventually I figured out it was for like, just like a sample CD or something. I thought it was the whole unit. So that was really unfortunate, but I really wanted that thing. Ryan, I remember your computer crashing. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but I remember you lost a lot of stuff. So I think that happened a couple times, which we've talked about, but yeah, you're right up there with Muscari Tamerlan, losing all your stuff and then going, oh, that's not fun. Going over the edge here now. If you're ever mixing color and you're not really sure what you need, you might as well leave the edge till the end, because then if you go all the way to the edge, it's a lot harder to go over that. But I think this is like probably fine for now. I'll see what I'm going to do with it later, if I'm going to change the color around or not. I mean, it's pretty close to what I need. Oh, Akai 2000. S2000 for a sample. So it's turning into a really music focused stream here. But I also have a little I think it's SK5 keyboard sampler that Brian and I have played around on from time to time. Well, years ago. That was a fun little kind of gadget made by Casio, I think. Yeah, this is an unusual color. Well, this is an Indian couple, and you know, they did one shoot like this, which is, you know, the Western style clothes, and then they also did a shoot with the more traditional Indian colors. So, like, you know, India is just really big on color in general. You know, they don't really do black and white very much. So, I think this is a nice color. I mean, I feel like men's fashion is so incredibly limited to begin with. If you're, you know, if you're at least choosing an interesting color or, you know, pattern or something, I think that's nice. I mean, honestly, I'm just disgusted with men's fashion. It's like, literally, there's hardly any options, and what there is, like, suits have barely changed for like 200 or 300 years, the style. I mean, the tails used to be longer, but, you know, maybe the little flaps around the edges of the place where it comes together used to be a little bit bigger or smaller at times, but, you know, it's really not changed very much. Just as colors go in general, this is like a fairly unusual color. I'd call it mauve. Oh, you had an SK5. Oh. Yeah, Brian and I called the little sampler that I still have it now. We called it the Etch-a-Sketch because if it was turned on and you turned it upside down, all the samples got erased on it, which is not supposed to happen. I think that keyboard was a gift to my brother when we were in the 80s. Like, it was probably like 11 or 12 or something. Eventually I got it from our grandmother. Oh, the circuit bending. Yeah, I think I had looked them up a little while ago just to see if there was any still out there, and I had seen a bunch of those modified ones, and yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff some people are doing with it. I mean, I could see you being into that with your Commodore 64 enthusiasm. I mean, you get yourself a whole bunch of 80s technology gear and make an album that sounds like who knows what would happen. Yeah, then I had a stereo when we were at Tyler also, our art school, which would turn itself on at night sometimes. So whatever volume level you left it on, that's what you would hear when it turned on, and it would erase all of the radio presets. It would go to the tuner, and it would just blast, you know, static, potentially very loudly at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And I think sometimes it would even shut itself off again then. So we actually called that Zoltar. That was back in the days when having a big sound system had tons of buttons and echo effects and all kinds of crap you could add on there. It was one of those. There was a rack system. Brush is a little bit large for this part I'm doing here, but I guess it's okay. Yeah, so Brian's saying it would scare the bejesus out of him at 3 a.m. Imagine being in the same room when it happened. I mean, roommate Colin sometimes would be listening to it, and I always told him, you know, make sure you turn the volume down when you're done, just in case. And sometimes he wouldn't. And then you just wake up sleeping soundly in your bed to what sounds like, you know, robot death destruction noise. So now when I did this original kind of base here, I didn't do all the detail for all these little wrinkles happening. So I'm kind of, I think I'm just going to go over what I have right now. I'm going to go back over it again, so maybe I'll just add all that detail later when I'm doing that next part. Yeah, DJ Shadow was really big in art school, in our floor. But then there was the guys down the hall that would play DJ Shadow like every day and then just start dancing out in the hall. That would happen also. You might be thinking of them a little bit, because I remember like, we listened to DJ Shadow, but I think it was Organ Donor. The guys down the hall would just play like constantly, which was not the only good song on Introducing. Really, the whole album was good. Yeah. Robot Death Destruction. We have electronic waste days in my town. It's on the calendar when you can just put out your old electronics and they take them away. And I thought that would make a great name for a techno album. And I just fix this little smudge here on the hand. I'd be painting over it, but sometimes you have a darker color underneath and you're painting over it with a lighter color. It doesn't really cover it quite as much as you want. I like to just take a little piece of paper towel here and just get a nice firm corner on it and just wipe things off sometimes if it's really definitely something I don't want. Plenty of other people would just kind of paint into it and cover it that way. So that's fine also. I'm going a little bit kind of cautious about how much oil I'm adding in here, just to make sure, since I'm going to be painting over this, I don't want the layer to dry too glossy, which sometimes is a little bit tricky to kind of predict. Probably could add some more without that being any issue, but it's fine. Might want to just oil out on this either way if it does sink at all. Yes, Brian recorded everything as a wee tyke. I guess I couldn't call him a tyke, as a ute back in the old days. He practically had a camera just attached to his face, as if it was part of his skull. A lot of little wrinkles over here and little bumps. I don't know if I want to put them all in, actually. Not sure if that's one of those things that might be better left out. I might kind of smooth that out a little bit. It's one of those things that I never really know sometimes. A couple might want certain wrinkles kind of removed, or if they want them in there just to kind of, that's just how the fabric looks, and it's fine. Let's leave it kind of more general right now. There's this little flap where the bottom of the jacket is sort of flipped up a little bit. Looks like he might have had his hand in his pocket right before this photo. So I will make that coming out right here some more. She was saying it was very windy, as you could probably tell from her hair. So if you want to give a little lift on the bottom of the flap there for the edge of the jacket right there. I guess, yeah, maybe not. Obviously, I want to get everything as nice as I can with the couple here. They're really the focal point of the whole image. Plenty of other places that if I didn't paint it exactly the same, wouldn't really make that much of a difference, but not for the people. No, I guess that's pretty much it for this suit. Well, that definitely took a while. Now, do I want to do anything else on here? I don't know if I really need to or not. Oh boy, I got some of the magenta sort of mauve color on the snow. Fine line between making the edge a little bit blurry, which looks nice, versus just making it kind of sloppy, which might look like a mistake. Just touch up this little spot right here. Now there's the shoulder here, which I didn't actually put in for the base layer. And kind of narrow right over there as far as like where everything needs to go. So I guess I could maybe put that in. I think I should switch to a different brush for that. Yeah, maybe this one's okay. Yeah, I guess so. I'm looking at the opening here of the shirt and the shape there. Together with the angles, sort of two different angles happening for how the jacket is kind of out. Again, that's another thing that I'm like, do I want to paint it just like that? I guess maybe, I don't know, is that helping to show the wind kind of blowing through the jacket, or would it be better to have it kind of going down more like the other side, more of a straight line? Just kind of like figure out here exactly where I want this to end up before I really put the paint in. He's got two shoulders now. I think this gap here might be a little big. Actually, probably need to bring this edge closer up here. Been working on this painting for a while. I kind of forgot. I think I left this edge here a little bit wide intentionally just because you have this white shirt in the middle. So yeah, this really needs to come up actually. Be like right about here. There's the flap for the lapel or whatever you call it right there. Of course, this changes the amount of space I have between the right side and the other one I was just working on. Yeah, we had a lot of good times back at Tyler. I haven't been to the new campus since it moved down to Philadelphia. I might need to bring his shoulder up here a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe not. Seems like there's something to adjust. Actually, I think maybe it's going out a little bit too far on the right. That might be it. I think actually, all right, so I'm just looking. So there's the negative space up here around the head going onto the shoulder. I'm looking at that. Looking at where the chin is right now for him also. And actually comparing it to that, I feel like I need to actually bring the shoulder up slightly. So just put that up higher right there. And it's a little bit too pointy right now. Slightly more curved on the reference. And then this angle changes maybe a little bit more right here also. A little slight change like that. Part of what I'm doing is just also getting the shape right, even if I'm painting over this again. I have the shape in there, but I've got to still touch up a little bit here and there. Oh, so you've been there, Brian. Yeah, and I thought it would be interesting to go and see what the new campus looks like. But it sounds about right from what I would expect. So our school was out in the outskirts of Elkins Park. It was outside of Philly and in a place where there's trees and stuff. Everybody loved it there. It was just like such a nice little campus. People just hang out all over the place, just like laying around on the lawn and sketching or reading, doing their homework or whatever. I don't know how much that's happening at the new place, but it was a really great location before. kind of interesting. I've heard about other art schools too, where it's like really competitive. People are just kind of backstabbing each other and stuff like that, because it was really not like that at all at our schools. Very friendly, kind of welcoming culture, and we called most of the teachers by their first name. I try to tell people that sometimes, like, their eyes bug out of their head. So that seems to be pretty unique. Okay, so I might have actually gone over a little bit too far originally when I was doing this, because it looks like the color, well, actually, I guess maybe it is the blue I did before that's kind of showing right there, but it's not really all that noticeable. So I feel like this is closer to the shape of his shoulder, how it should really be. It might be out a little bit more still than it needs to go, but I think that's closer. I'll bring it in some more right down here. Mitch thinks that Philly around 98-99 was something special. Well, that's nice. Didn't really go down to Philadelphia too much when we were in art school, but I can say this much. I went there to see the Flaming Lips a couple years after I graduated, and never got that lost in my life. Like 2 hours of just trying to reroute and getting stuck going under tunnels or over bridges or in some neighborhood where there's giant chemical vats directly next to apartments. So I would say it's definitely not an easy place to drive in my experience. Of course, GPS now would make things a lot easier. And for me, definitely New York, really. Some other big cities that people that live there like to think, that's the greatest city in the world, and that's nice, but I've not been to anywhere that I think really can top New York. For various reasons. Of course, it's kind of getting ruined now because everything is getting gentrified and getting so expensive that people have to leave, and it includes businesses too. So that part's not good. This is a little too high here now. I actually gotta bring it down. Yeah, actually was going to meet one of my roommates from college there at the Flaming Lips concert. And I stopped to call him. It was Ferris Perry, I think that's what it was called, where I had to stop. Pulled into a gas station and went to use a payphone. There's like a guy selling probably bootleg CDs and shirts out of a back of a van right in the middle of the gas station, and I was like, well, that's interesting. And I wasn't used to seeing that. I'm looking at the space between his kind of jaw and the edge of his shoulder right there. And there's also, I need to have room for the bow tie to fit a certain amount in that spot. So it looks like this really should be a little bit lower right here, maybe slightly more than that. This is one of those things that, I don't know, could I just make his shoulders slightly higher over there? Maybe, but it might kind of affect the way that it looks as far as the angle we're seeing him at, and he's standing next to her and everything. I don't want him to start looking too stiff or something. Are you asking me, Brian, or Mitch? You're asking me. Calvin and Hobbes was one of the best comic strips ever made. I think I might have one of the collections. I don't even remember. I don't have it anywhere nearby, but someplace. Maybe in storage. I think that's almost where I need it, but not quite. Yeah, I was really into Garfield when I was growing up. I had like every book up to like number 20 or something. I think right around that time they changed writers and I wasn't really into it anymore. 24 or something like that. They also had, I don't know how many little Garfield plush stuffed animals. There was a lot of them. I did learn at some point, which was very surprising, that Jim Davis actually didn't draw the comic strip. Like, he started it in, I think, 77, and like 1980 or 81 on, somebody else drew it, even though he always signed it. So that was weird. I mean, you'd think when you see somebody's name on something, that means they did it, but apparently not. I guess that was his approval or something. Okay, I think this other shoulder's okay now. Yeah, so didn't Jim Davis at least storyboard and other people inked or drew it in? I don't know. I know he definitely signed it, in ink. I don't remember where I heard that, but I heard that, you know, many years ago. I mean, I definitely thought he was like writing and drawing the whole thing, but I don't know. Just seemed kind of like, I don't know, weird. And it was, like I said, it was only, I feel like 3 or 4 years he was doing it. You'd think maybe after like 15 years you'd run out of things to put in there, but that doesn't even really seem like that long of a time. And they've definitely changed writers for The Simpsons and different shows and things like that. So it's not like that never happens in other places, but for a comic strip, it seems like much more like the type of thing that you see, like one dude is doing it. And he just, you know, draws it every day, like Charles Schultz. He said when he died, then that was it for Peanuts. Why would he have someone else do it? I think that Jim Davis, after a while, was working on U.S. Acres a lot more than Garfield. Maybe that was part of the whole thing. I don't think U.S. Acres ever got anywhere near as big. And there was Garfield and Friends, where there was a U.S. Acres part on Saturday mornings, which I remember being a funny show. Looking at this space right here, I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I mean, I moved this edge a little bit in right over here so it's not sticking out as much. So I guess actually maybe you need to bring this just out more to sort of go along with that change. Yeah, Andy Warhol. And that's all I need to say about Andy Warhol. I mean, there was an interesting part in Basquiat, the movie, where Bowie was playing Andy Warhol. There's a guy that was peeing onto canvas or something. And, you know, Basquiat says to him, you know, why don't you pee onto the canvas? And he was like, well, you know, I don't like beer. And the guy had been drinking a beer that was turning his pee green. I mean, and you can't even pee onto a canvas and call it your own. Just saying. Mitch, it's so interesting. I can barely even contain myself. All right. Now, part of what I'm looking at here is the edge. I don't know if you can really see. I've got this kind of background color painted in just a little, very light blue. Got the edge of her neck, and then I've got his shoulder right around here someplace. I think just put this in a little bit, slightly more over here. Oops. I think that's probably it, even if it's just a little different than the reference. I'm changing it a little bit anyway, to make it, I think, look slightly better. Okay. Man, I'm surprised that I took this long just to do this one flat coat on this suit, but sometimes that's the way it goes. think maybe I will actually go in there while the paint's still wet and add in some highlights here. I was thinking this was pretty close to the light parts of the suit, aside from some of the really light areas that are hitting, you know, the bottom of the leg down here or this kind of shoulder. But really looking at it now, it looks like there's definitely places that can get lighter. So I'm gonna just add some white in there, right over here. It's gonna be really exciting. Oh wow, look at that. Yeah, that doesn't look good actually. Looks too white. Looks too white to be the same color. Well. Yeah, because it's still really holding the saturation right there. And I really want to use the quinacridone right now. That would really just solve this problem here. Well, I guess that does look kind of like a pencil with an eraser. Just a really extremely long pencil. Okay, so this color is definitely not as saturated as I want it to be. It's a little bit of a conundrum here. I mean, I could use, like I was saying, there's that cobalt violet, which is sort of a lighter violet than the one I was using here. I can go back over this with that and see if it maybe helps to kind of bring things up, but I guess for now I'll just kind of use this white and separate things for when I'm going to be going back over it. Just noticing actually now this hand over here should be sort of an indentation right at the wrist, so right now it's kind of just going right into the sleeve. So I think maybe this part's supposed to actually go up a little bit more than what I have right now. Feeling like maybe this forearm is a little bit long also. Yes, I think I'm going to bring this maybe back a little bit. I'm going to get my magical eraser tool actually. Actually nice the way that the color I'm adding here and then the blue underneath is sort of interacting, even though you're not going to see that by the time I'm done painting, but I'm making this almost purplish color together. I think there's something going on right here. Just looking at where so the width of his chest, maybe, I don't know if it's going out too far. But there's something like this, just looks like it's too wide right here. Just adjust my reference to get it at 100%. This is one of those things that so now that I have the actual color painted in there, it looks a lot closer to how it should be. So certain things are becoming a little more noticeable that I didn't really notice before, as far as how wide this should be. Really getting the reference exactly the same size as the painting really makes a big difference, just being able to look at it and figure out what's wrong. Okay, I want to change this angle I added right here just a little bit now. It's just one thing that's standing out to me, which is not a big part, but it's just a little bit off. Might be the kind of thing where I would turn the painting upside down right now and look at it. If it wasn't so enormous. Just kind of compare the reference that way, but sometimes that helps. I can see there's something going on. I'm just not really getting what it is. This makes for really great streaming, but like there's something just off here. I don't know if I need to make the forearm thicker or what, but this just looks too long. I think actually the angle, maybe this is it. The angle of the arm seems like maybe it's not quite vertical enough. There have been times where I've just sat and stared at a painting over things like this for many minutes, maybe even 10 or 15 minutes, just trying to figure out what's wrong. So I can see there's something wrong there. Not sure exactly what yet. I guess that's fine though, really. I remember hearing about, I don't know, was it Max Ernst that used to just work on a painting, stand back like 10, 15 feet, smoke a cigar for like half an hour, go back, do one more little thing, stand back, smoke a cigar, stare at it again. So I guess that's just making art. Maybe that was Clay, not Ernst, I don't know, I can't remember. Schmuckleberry. Fashionably late. Hey there. Good Vibes Tony. Well, that's another good name I could use. Change that to my stream name. Yeah, so I've actually started working on the people here. Finally, I'm just trying to figure out what's going on here. There's something wrong with this guy's arm. It's looking almost there, but something's a little bit off. Yeah, you know, sometimes I kind of feel like going cross-eyed after looking at the paintings for hours and hours. I mean, I'm enjoying overall how this one's going. A lot going on, but you know, I've done paintings where I was, you know, really ready to be done with it far before it was actually done. I feel like I want to bring this in right here a little bit more. I'm thinking maybe that's part of what I'm seeing that needs to be adjusted. And I was kind of thinking the shoulder was going out too far up here. Maybe this line needs to come in slightly, but to me, well, yeah, I'm not so sure that's actually it. So here's another thing I'm looking at where the little point comes together right here where you see the bottom of that white area for the shirt. I'm looking at where this is. Maybe this is the real thing. It's like this collar maybe just needs to keep coming back some more. Kind of seems like that might be it, because it's really going more of an angle on the reference there. Is it the angle of his butt or a thigh? Do you mean this over here? I did change this a little bit, just because there's like the jacket sort of, you know, if the wind is kind of blowing it up right over there or whatever. So that is slightly different, but there's something more than that, I think. There does come a case, or time, for certain cases of paintings or whatever you're working on where even if you're measuring everything very closely, sometimes measuring only gets you so far and you have to just make it look right. I'm kind of just like visually looking at this now and trying to get the things fit together the way they need to, but in the end, you just have to look at it, and if it looks weird, you got to fix it. You don't want it to look weird. Okay, so that's seeming better for where his hand should be ending up. Let's make a little mark here for the edge of the hand. Okay, I'm going to bring this down a little bit right here. Make it look not quite as thin. And I'll bring this part down more. Okay, so I'm thinking actually the arm overall is maybe just a little bit thin actually, so I'm gonna bring this in like I was doing before. And also the arm. Bring it more to the left on this edge so that it looks a little bit bigger. Looking at where this bottom of the sleeve here should be compared to her hand, if I've got the hand in the right place, which actually looks like the hand could maybe come down just a little bit more. Yeah, I think this is what I needed to do here. It's not even really that big of a difference, but it just looks better. Need to make sure I don't overdo it. Actually have this edge a little too high right here. I'm going to bring that down. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit more of the kind of suit color right over here. Bring this down just a little bit for the hand here. I feel like it's just, this is like so specific, all this little stuff here. But altogether it kind of makes everything look like it actually is in the right place or not. Okay, so I still have that little blue part that I had done, part of the original base, that's kind of showing up right there, but when I paint the hand in more, then it's going to come down lower than the white area I have right there. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of the main work to do on this suit for right now. So maybe, all right, one last thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring this down just a little bit more on the right. I think then that's going to be it for today. Okay. So I'm thinking it's going to be all for now. So thanks for watching. This was not the most productive stream as far as just like the amount of stuff I got done, but sometimes it takes a while to just mix up a whole bunch of color and get it right on there. So it's at least pretty close to what I need. I think I might do the cobalt violet when I'm going back over this again, which will make it look a little bit more kind of saturated in purple. So, until next time, thanks for watching. I'll see you then.